They're calling it white gold, and the people who understand what's coming say that name undersells it. $156 billion worth of lithium, sitting in the Pilbara, in a stretch of Western Australian dirt that looks identical to every other stretch of Western Australian dirt for 100 kilometers in any direction. No signs, no surface expression, nothing to suggest that beneath the spinifex and red dust, one of the most strategically significant mineral deposits on Earth was waiting. But here is the part that should stop you cold. It wasn't hidden by depth. It wasn't hidden by distance. It was hidden by a filing cabinet. Geologists drilled straight through this lithium decades ago. They logged it, they recorded it, and then they moved on because in that era, lithium wasn't the point. The world didn't need it yet. So the cores went into storage, the data went into a drawer, and a $156 billion deposit sat untouched while the world slowly built an entire civilization that would eventually be unable to function without it. The discovery at Tabba Tabba isn't really a discovery at all. It's a reckoning. And it raises a question that nobody in the global mining industry can answer comfortably right now. If this was hiding in old data in one of the most extensively explored countries on Earth, what else is sitting in a drawer somewhere waiting for the world to finally need it? The formal announcement came in September 2023, but the real discovery happened decades earlier, in a drill core that nobody paid close enough attention to. Tabba Tabba had been on the map for years, not as a lithium story, as a tantalum field. Tantalum is a different metal entirely, dense, corrosion-resistant, used in electronics and aerospace components. In the era when Tabba Tabba was first worked, tantalum was the prize. Teams drilled, sampled, and processed what they were looking for. Everything else was logged and set aside. The lithium was right there in the rock. Thick, continuous bodies of lithium-bearing pegmatite running through the system in stacked sheets. The drill cores showed it, the assay records contained it. It simply wasn't the point. Nobody was building a civilization that ran on lithium batteries yet. The energy transition was not yet a supply chain problem. So the data went into storage and Tabba Tabba went quiet. Then the world changed. Electric vehicles stopped being a curiosity and started being a manufacturing target. Grid-scale battery storage moved from pilot projects to national infrastructure. Governments began treating lithium supply the way they had always treated oil supply, as a strategic vulnerability. Suddenly, the question wasn't just where new lithium could be found, it was where it had already been found and forgotten. Someone went back to the Tabba Tabba data with that question in mind. The cores hadn't changed, the lithium hadn't moved. The resource that came back from modern evaluation sat at 74 million tons of ore grading around 1% lithium oxide. The drawer had been full the entire time. To understand why Tabba Tabba exists, you have to go back hundreds of millions of years to a Pilbara that looks nothing like the stable, arid plateau it is today. The crust was active, fractured, threaded through with intrusions. Deep beneath the surface, bodies of granitic magma were forming and beginning the slow process of cooling. And as they cooled, something chemically significant was happening, a process of elimination that would eventually produce one of the most lithium-rich geological systems in the southern hemisphere. Minerals crystallized out of cooling magma in a specific sequence. The common elements go first. Iron, magnesium, calcium, they lock into early forming crystals and drop out of the melt. What remains behind is a residual liquid, progressively stripped of everything ordinary, and what's left after the ordinary elements are gone are the elements that don't fit neatly into normal mineral structures. Lithium, tantalum, cesium, tin. Elements that had been present in trace amounts from the beginning, but were now becoming concentrated to chemical extreme levels. When pressure built inside that enriched residual melt, it moved. It was injected upward into fractures and faults in the surrounding crust, crystallizing slowly in the relatively cool rock above. The The result was pegmatites, coarse-grained igneous bodies capable of trapping extraordinary concentrations of rare elements inside large, well-formed crystals. At Tabba Tabba, those pegmatites had a delivery system. The Tabba Tabba shear zone, a deep crustal fault structure, acted as a pathway, guiding the enriched melts upward into favorable positions. A thick dolerite sill provided the trap. Harder and chemically distinct from the surrounding rock, it acted as a barrier that focused pegmatite emplacement along its margins. The lithium didn't scatter, it stacked. Layer above layer, sheet above sheet, organized by geology into a system that was waiting to be understood. The first pegmatite to reveal what Tabba Tabba really was got named Leah. That name wasn't chosen for novelty, it was earned. When drilling intersected Leah for the first time at meaningful scale, the numbers forced a recalibration. Not a narrow vein, not an isolated pod, a large, continuous, high-grade body extending over significant widths with consistent lithium grades along its entire length. The kind of intercept that makes geologists go quiet for a moment and then start redrawing their models. Leah set an expectation. If one pegmatite of this scale existed within the system, the stacked architecture suggested another should be sitting below it. That prediction was testable. The drill went down, and the prediction held. Luke was found not by luck but by logic. Sitting blind beneath Leah, concealed under cover with no surface expression of its own, Luke confirmed everything the geological model had implied. The stacked architecture was real. The system wasn't a single lucky intersection. It was organized, repeating, and continuous at depth. What followed was a systematic expansion that kept delivering the same answer. Chewy, Han, Hut. Each new pegmatite intersected with the same chemistry, the same geometry, the same continuity that Leah had first revealed. Each discovery wasn't a surprise, it was a confirmation. The geology was behaving exactly as a mature, coherent lithium system should behave. That distinction matters enormously. A single high-grade intercept is an occurrence. A series of stacked, chemically consistent, geometrically predictable bodies repeating through the same structural corridor is a district. Tabba Tabba stopped being a mineral occurrence somewhere around the third or fourth confirmation drill hole. By the time the resource estimate formalized, it had become something else entirely. A system where the question was no longer whether lithium existed, but how much of it the geology had already organized into mineable form. The answer to that question is still growing. The pegmatites remain open along strike, they remain open at depth. Every new drill hole that comes back with the same consistent grades and widths is not a discovery, it is a measurement of something that was always there. The lithium at Tabba Tabba didn't hide itself particularly well. In hindsight, the signs were there. The problem wasn't the geology, it was the resolution. Older geophysical surveys covered the Pilbara at a scale designed to find the things people were already looking for. The equipment was calibrated for the targets of that era. Subtle surface expressions of pegmatite bodies sitting beneath shallow cover, minor magnetic variations, faint density contrasts, slight discoloration in the regolith, fell below the threshold of what those surveys could meaningfully detect. The signal existed. The technology couldn't isolate it from the noise. What changed was precision. High-resolution drone imagery began picking up surface anomalies that earlier aerial surveys had smoothed over entirely, subtle color variations in the soil, faint textural differences in the ground surface above buried pegmatite contacts. Details that only became visible when the resolution increased by an order of magnitude. When those anomalies were mapped and drilling was targeted against them, the first lithium assays came back and the exploration strategy pivoted immediately. Not gradually, immediately. Because the numbers left no room for a cautious, incremental response. What followed was rapid expansion drilling across the anomaly field, hole after hole testing the geometry of the system, pushing outward along strike and downward through the stacked architecture. Each drill hole came back with the same answer. The resource grew with a consistency that reflected genuine geological organization rather than selective reporting of lucky intersections. This is the pattern that now defines modern discovery in the Pilbara and regions like it. The prospector with a gold pan has been replaced by a geologist at a workstation, running newly processed data through a geological model that didn't exist 10 years ago. The fieldwork still happens, the drill rigs still turn, But the discovery, the actual moment when the deposit becomes real, increasingly happens before anyone sets foot on the ground. Tabba Tabba was found twice, once by drill bits that didn't know what they were cutting through, and once by a team that went back to the data and asked what had been missed. The second finding was the one that counted. Australia didn't become the world's dominant hard rock lithium producer by accident. The Geology specialized in it. Ancient cratons, long-lived tectonic stability, repeated magmatic events over hundreds of millions of years. These are the exact conditions that concentrate lithium into pegmatite systems at the scale and grade that make mining viable. The Pilbara isn't just where lithium was found, it's where the Earth was particularly good at making it. That geological advantage is landing at the right moment. Electric vehicles are no longer a future technology, they are a present manufacturing problem with a supply chain attached. Grid-scale battery storage is scaling from pilot projects to national infrastructure across multiple continents simultaneously. Defense industries are running advanced battery systems through drones, communications equipment, and autonomous platforms that didn't exist a decade ago. Every one of those applications runs on lithium, and every ton of lithium has to come from somewhere. The lithium triangle of Chile, Argentina, and Bolivia currently anchors global brine supply. Australian hard rock mines anchor the spodumene concentrate market. Tabba Tabba doesn't disrupt that picture, it deepens it. A deposit of this scale in a jurisdiction with existing mining infrastructure, proven processing routes, and active feasibility studies reduces the fragility of a supply chain that the global economy is becoming increasingly dependent on. The mining leases are in place, the studies are advancing, the geology has already done its work. The only variable left is how fast the world admits it needs what the Pilbara has been quietly holding for hundreds of millions of years.